Chapter 1557. When he was almost done, Wang Sheng split a wisp of his mind and took a look at Lin Xiu's phoenix essence soul. There was still a little bit of abnormality under the phoenix origin spirit's ribs, but from Wang Sheng's point of view, it had already recovered a little. This showed that the vast heaven and earth spiritual energy was useful to Lin Xiu's injuries. At this time, Wang Sheng did not think too much about why such a powerful mass of spiritual energy could only heal Lin Xiu a little. As long as it was useful, Wang Sheng did not mind doing it a few more times. 96 Jiaodu transformed at the same time, which was equivalent to 96 epic realm experts advancing at the same time. The spiritual qi of heaven and earth that was instantly triggered exceeded everyone's understanding. Inside the land of 1,000 despair, countless streams of spiritual energy were drawn towards Wang Sheng, as if they were being drawn by a huge water pump. Because the spirit qi was too vast, it directly formed a roaring spirit qi tornado, sweeping away the spirit qi within a radius of several hundred miles. The sudden appearance of a spiritual energy vacuum caused the spiritual energy in the world to be out of balance, and it crazily rushed in this direction. Even the spiritual energy in the core area of the ground of 1,000 despair was stirred up like a raging storm. What happened? It was unknown how many people in the world were shocked, but they all asked this question. Countless people rushed in that direction, trying to figure out what was going on. Everyone in the worry-free city was dumbfounded. Other than Lin Xiu, including LV Wenhou and Ling Er, no one knew what happened to Wang Sheng. Why did he suddenly start to temper his body again? What was even more frightening was that this aura was clearly the aura of a grand historical realm cultivator advancing to the 12th stage. Since when could heaven and earth spiritual energy be used like this? If everyone could casually attract the spirit qi of heaven and earth, wouldn't that mean that they could use the spirit qi of heaven and earth to cultivate at any time? Then why would he need to consolidate his cultivation? Even a fool would be able to advance by leaps and bounds, right? Lin Xiu was actually quite surprised. She didn't expect Wang Sheng to have 100 source spirits, and each of them could advance individually. It was probably because of this that the spiritual qi of heaven and earth were continuously drawn out. Now that Wang Sheng suddenly triggered 96 peppers to advance at the same time, Lin Xiu only needed to ponder slightly to know Wang Sheng's intentions. Wang Sheng was afraid that it would be difficult for her to fight so many experts by herself, so he didn't care about the price to level up so that he could help her. Thinking of this, even someone as cold as Lin Xiu could not help but feel happy and warm in her heart. Lin Xiu appreciated this kind intention. However, Wang Sheng was in the midst of advancing, so it was best not to disturb him. Moreover, with the relationship between the two of them, there was no need to say any words of thanks. By the time the experts arrived, the people of the worry-free city had already sent out countless messenger birds. The higher-ups of the various factions also received the news. Wang Sheng alone, in addition to the previous 2 times of 20 days, could be said to have continuously attracted the spiritual energy of heaven and earth to temper his body for 30 to 40 days. Moreover, the situation was even worse. What was even more terrifying was that he had already reached the 12th stage from the epic realm. This news made everyone who heard it dumbfounded. How could this be? How could there be such a thing in the cultivation records of the experts of the various clans and sects? But this matter had happened, under the watchful eyes of everyone. It was impossible to be fake. Many people felt like they were sitting on pins and needles. Send more people to make a move? That would probably incur the wrath of the masses. Moreover, if they really wanted to make a move, based on the previous opportunity, ordinary experts would not be able to do anything. Only the old ancestor could do it personally. But to let their own old ancestor bully the weak, even if the various families were willing, those old ancestors still wanted face. So how could they agree to it? Compared to the gloomy atmosphere of the various factions, the few forces in the capital were all secretly delighted. Whether it was the royal family, Laojun Temple, or Duke Chongqing's residence, they were all happy scenes. They were all clear that as Wang Sheng's cultivation grew higher and higher, his words had more and more weight, so the various families did not dare to easily do anything to him. Under the real-time attention of countless experts, Wang Sheng used another 10 days' time and finally completed the transformation of the remaining 96 carp source spirits. When the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was tempering his body, Wang Sheng's source spirit space became more and more stable, and the qi inside was already one step away from liquefying. What made Wang Sheng even more surprised was that Wang Sheng could already use the 8-word formula skillfully, and its power was many times stronger than when he used the 1-word formula. Seeing the spiritual energy of heaven and earth shrink and slowly dissipate, everyone finally let out a long sigh of relief. It should be done now, no more trouble, right? Even if Wang Sheng was not tired from advancing, these people who were watching the ceremony had been constantly feeling the aura of Wang Sheng's advancement for more than a month, so they were exhausted. As a result, before Wang Sheng could rest, some of the spectating experts had already changed shifts several times. The greater the expectation, the greater the disappointment. Just when everyone thought they could rest and go back to seclusion to comprehend and improve their cultivation, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth that was nearing its end finally dissipated. But before everyone could cheer, the next moment, an even larger wave of spiritual energy of heaven and earth began to gather. This time, the gathering of the spiritual energy of heaven and earth was no longer a simple frenzy, but it had turned into a raging wave. The spiritual energy rushing over from all directions caused some of the 9th stage realm experts present to be blown off their feet. Those with lower cultivation dared not go near anymore, and only looked from afar at the area, which had turned into a crazy whirlpool of spiritual energy. That was a huge spiritual energy whirlpool formed from the purest and most refined spiritual energy of heaven and earth. Wherever the whirlpool swept past, the houses in that area of worry-free city had already started to collapse bit by bit. What a joke! What kind of house could withstand such a degree of spiritual energy of heaven and earth? Those who could enter the circle of the whirlpool at least had a cultivation of the 9th stage realm, and this was only the outermost area of the circle. In order to enter, one could only be a legendary level or even an epic level expert. Wang Sheng was ruthless. When the 100 original spirits had all completed the Swanee transformation, Wang Sheng's accumulation was already enough for him to advance to the 13th stage realm immediately. Wang Sheng saw that Lin Xiu's rib injury had recovered by half, so he immediately started the advancement process without any care. As long as it was beneficial to Lin Xiu and could help Lin Xiu, he didn't mind going up a mountain of swords or plunging into a sea of flames, not to mention just letting himself advance. This time round was an earth-shattering advancement, and all the old ancestors from various places were all alarmed. Previously, no matter how much Wang Sheng played, he was merely in the legendary realm or epic realm, at most in the 12th stage realm, which was lower than them by an entire realm, so they could totally crush him. But now, Wang Sheng actually advanced to the 13th stage realm directly, and was about to be in the same realm as them. This was heaven-defying. No way, they absolutely could not let Wang Sheng advance successfully. Chapter 1558. To save face, the old ancestors didn't go directly to the scene of Wang Sheng's advancement. All the information they received was received by the various clans in Worry-Free City through messenger birds. Of course, the orders were also sent out through messenger birds, so a period of time had passed between the two. Their new order was to attack at all costs, regardless of the rules of Worry-Free City. If Worry-Free City dared to obstruct them, they would destroy Worry-Free City as well. Many people had been deployed to the vicinity of Worry-Free City over the past few days. They were just waiting for their orders. However, while messenger birds were fast, they were still a few times slower than heavy snow. When the various experts in Worry-Free City received the messenger birds, they could only laugh bitterly and send out the latest news. They didn't even think about sending people to attack Wang Sheng. It wasn't that they didn't want to attack Wang Sheng, but that they couldn't. On the second day of Wang Sheng's advancement, heavy snow had already spread his wings at an altitude of 30,000 meters. He dove into the huge ball of spiritual energy formed by Wang Sheng's 100 origin souls. Heavy Snow was attracted by Wang Sheng's aura. This time, all the spiritual energy in the world was disturbed when 100 origin souls advanced to stage 13 at the same time. Heavy Snow, who was far away in the ocean, could also sense it. However, unlike other demonic beasts, Heavy Snow could sense Wang Sheng's familiar aura. Heavy Snow had been severely injured when he was surrounded by Dai Hao and the others. After recuperating on the island for such a long time, he had barely recovered half of his injuries. After sensing Wang Sheng's aura, Heavy Snow immediately flew towards the place where the spiritual energy in heaven and earth was concentrated. One day was enough for Heavy Snow to reach Worry-Free City. After sensing Wang Sheng's powerful aura, Heavy Snow dove into the ball of spiritual energy. Wang Sheng instantly sensed Heavy Snow's presence. He activated the 8 words technique. Heavy Snow spun 2 rounds in the ball of spiritual energy before descending. Everyone was trying to sense Wang Sheng's aura. They didn't notice Heavy Snow's huge figure above their heads. Wang Sheng relied on the 8 words technique to easily inform Lin Xiao of Heavy Snow's arrival. Without anyone noticing, the snow rapidly swept across the sky above Carefree City. Lin Xiao, on the other hand, brought Wang Sheng with her and easily stepped onto the snow's back. Amidst countless people's astonished gazes, the snow carried Wang Sheng and Lin Xiao into the sky, flying straight into the clouds and disappearing from sight. Everyone was dumbfounded. This kind of situation was something that they had never expected. But even with such a huge movement, Wang Sheng's advancement process didn't stop. Everyone could still feel Wang Sheng's powerful aura. The ball of spiritual energy didn't dissipate either. It was just that Wang Sheng rushed into the ball of spiritual energy and absorbed the heaven and earth spiritual energy directly. Heavy Snow benefited a lot from the majestic heaven and earth spiritual energy. The injuries on his body healed rapidly. The internal injuries in his body disappeared without a trace in less than a day. Advancing on Heavy Snow's back was a rather novel experience for Lin Xiao. Moreover, she was in the ball of spiritual energy. Her whole body was immersed in it, which was extremely beneficial to her body. Lin Xiao didn't stand on ceremony either. She absorbed and used it to her heart's content. This was the spiritual energy triggered by Wang Sheng. Lin Xiao definitely wouldn't stand on ceremony with Wang Sheng. Everyone on the ground, whether they wanted to make a move or simply wanted to comprehend and reference, looked at the sky helplessly. Although they could still feel a little of the aura from so far away, it wasn't very useful anymore. As for those who wanted to make a move, other than smiling bitterly, what else could they do? Ride on their flying mounts and make a move? Just by looking at Heavy Snow's figure, everyone knew that ordinary flying mounts would die if they went up. But this strange scene was unprecedented. None of them left. All of them waited in Carefree City to feel it. At least they wanted to know what the result was. Wang Sheng didn't disappoint everyone. He advanced for 20 days in a row without stopping. When the cloud and the essence soul space condensed into spiritual liquid, Wang Sheng's 100 essence souls had all turned into 100 green 3-clawed dragons. The essence soul space seemed to have turned into an ocean. 100 green dragons swam leisurely inside, soaring in different forms. Just 13-stage realm cultivation, but the quality of Wang Sheng's essence soul space was already able to catch up to Lin Xiao's essence soul space. What was more terrifying was that Wang Sheng's essence soul space was at least 10 times bigger than Lin Xiao's. The number of acupuncture points had already become 4,096. It had really turned into what Wang Sheng had predicted earlier. His entire body was filled with acupuncture points. If he were to use the essence returning hand at this moment, Lin Xiao probably wouldn't be able to receive Wang Sheng's full force attack, which was strengthened by 200 times. We can face the entire world together. The first sentence that Wang Sheng said after he finished advancing and opened his eyes was this sentence directed at Lin Xiao. 13-stage realm, 100 essence souls. Wang Sheng absolutely had the confidence to challenge the entire world. Lin Xiao didn't reply, but the happy smile on her face already explained everything. How's your injury? Wang Sheng immediately followed up with a question. Already fully recovered, Lin Xiao replied with a smile. While saying that, she stretched out her hand towards Wang Sheng's forehead, displaying her own essence soul space for Wang Sheng to take a look. Wang Sheng casually hugged Lin Xiao, pulling her into his embrace. The Phoenix essence soul was indeed very complete right now, without any flaws at all. Wang Sheng casually used an 8-words formula to check, and Lin Xiao's body was also perfectly fine. Looked like the heaven and earth spiritual qi was indeed useful. Wang Sheng heaved a sigh of relief, as he completely set his heart at ease. Wang Sheng's temperament also seemed to have changed along with his cultivation rising. In Lin Xiao's eyes, there was an additional calmness on Wang Sheng's body, as though there was nothing in this world that could stump Wang Sheng. This kind of temperament, even someone as strong as Lin Xiao couldn't help but be captivated. I remember that when I advanced, someone made a move. Wang Sheng did not realize this, but his confidence greatly increased was an indisputable fact. Let's go ask which family it was. When Wang Sheng broke through was just after going at it with Lin Xiao. Right now, he was still naked. He also did not know if Lin Xiao was seen carrying him on Heavy Snow's back or not. But it did not matter. There were plenty of clothes in the storage ring. Heavy Snow glided down gracefully, arriving in the sky above Carefree City. Wang Sheng and Lin Xiao jumped off Heavy Snow's back with ease and just happened to land in the courtyard of Wang Sheng's mansion. Returning to Carefree City again, the atmosphere was different. Wang Sheng did not need to go out to look and could also sense that there were many people in the surroundings who had a kind of awe towards him. He believed that the City Lord Manor would have a reaction in a while with the commotion here. Wang Sheng was not in a hurry either, sitting in the courtyard with Lin Xiao and slowly waiting. While waiting, Wang Sheng suddenly remembered something. He had not had time to give Lin Xiao the long sword that he had meticulously prepared for her. It just so happened that he brought it over at this time to present it as a treasure. This is the long sword that I personally forged for you. There's even a source soul living inside. Wang Sheng took out the long sword and handed it to Lin Xiao. Try it and see if it's comfortable or not. Chapter 1559. Upon hearing Wang Sheng say that it was personally forged, Lin Xiao's eyes lit up. Even if she had just recovered not long ago, she had also heard of the reputation of great Grandmaster Wang Sheng when she was playing outside. A weapon that could make Wang Sheng personally forge, it would definitely not be bad. After taking the long sword, Lin Xiao did not wait to observe the style and sharpness of the long sword before she felt the swordfish origin soul in the long sword fiercely rushing over. This was the old trick of that swordfish origin soul. Except for Wang Sheng, no one had been able to withstand its origin soul attack so far. Even the several great Grandmaster Elders of Exquisite Pavilion were no exception. They were legendary masters. However, when this old and cunning swordfish origin soul rushed into Lin Xiao's origin soul space, it was directly shocked by the rich spiritual energy and solid atmosphere inside. When it saw the slowly stretching phoenix origin soul, other than shivering, it did not dare to make any other movements. It was as obedient as a little goldfish pet. Interesting little guy. Lin Xiao, of course, noticed all this and directly gave an interesting comment. Then she waved the long sword forged by the swordfish origin soul. She only felt that it was as easy as moving her fingers. In the courtyard, there was a rockery that was as tall as 2 people. It was all made of solid mountain rocks. Lin Xiao casually swept the sword across the rockery. She did not use any spiritual energy. It was just a swing of her arm. The long sword moved from left to right like magic. There was not the slightest obstruction, and it did not leave a trace. Lin Xiao seemed to be a little incredulous. She carefully raised her hand and looked at her long sword. Wang Sheng smiled and stepped forward. He reached out and grabbed a stone on the rockery. With a light lift, most of the rockery was lifted by Wang Sheng. Then, both of them saw the smooth, mirror-like surface of the fracture. Good sword, I like it. Lin Xiao did not hide her love. She held it in her hand and could not put it down. Only when she heard the footsteps outside did she put it back into the storage ring. Looking at her expression, she was quite satisfied with the gift that Wang Sheng gave her. "Brother, you're here." As soon as the butler of the city Lord Manor entered, he heard Wang Sheng casually greeting him. Hearing this greeting, the housekeeper's heart warmed, but then his expression changed. He waved his hand at Wang Sheng and said, I don't dare." Beside Wang Sheng stood Lin Xiao. That was a great senior from 500 years ago. He didn't know what kind of relationship she had with Wang Sheng, but they were definitely close. How could he dare to let Wang Sheng call him brother in front of her? Are you tired of living? What's more, Wang Sheng didn't look any different from before, but just by standing there was an awe-inspiring aura that he had never felt before. Even though the housekeeper's cultivation wasn't bad, he didn't dare to look Wang Sheng in the eye. I came back for two things. Wang Sheng also knew that the housekeeper would definitely be restrained in front of Lin Xiao. He didn't want to waste time with the housekeeper and only told him his purpose. One is to help me release a piece of news, and the other is to find out something. Duke, please give me your instructions. The housekeeper nodded his head like a chick pecking on rice. Dai Hao has a secret technique that can collect the soul of someone who has just died. Wang Sheng was very direct and quickly revealed Dai Hao's secret. I was once captured alive by the Dai family. Dai Zhao's soul is of the same lineage as mine, and he wanted to devour my soul. I saw 4 13-stage souls in Dai Zhao's soul space. They should be the souls of the 4 deceased patriarchs. The 4 souls are a snake, a tiger, a rock, and a giant turtle. Wang Sheng was only halfway through his sentence when the housekeeper's face turned pale. The secret of the Dai family's patriarch was exposed by Wang Sheng, just like that. Also, on the day I escaped from the Dai family, Dai Hao wasn't around. Wang Sheng didn't care about Dai Hao's threats anymore. Of course, he wouldn't help Dai Hao hide his secret. That day happened to the Shi family's patriarch. Of course, there might be other patriarchs who weren't around. Anyway, you just have to release the news. The housekeeper kept nodding his head and didn't even dare to continue. As for the information, it's very simple. Wang Sheng smiled and asked the housekeeper, which family did the few people who attacked me when I advanced? This question wasn't very difficult. The housekeeper heaved a sigh of relief and quickly answered, they didn't escape. The city lord captured 3 of them alive, and the other 5 were killed on the spot. Princess Yongning has placed a huge bounty on their identities. Someone has already recognized them. The housekeeper carefully pointed out Mei Er. However, he didn't dare to say it out loud. He only dared to say that it was Princess Yongning. He stole a glance at Wang Sheng's expression before continuing to answer. 2 of them are sacrificial warriors from the Dai family, and 1 is from the Gon family. As for the remaining 5, we haven't found anything. They're very well hidden. At the moment, only these 2 families have been confirmed. All right, I got it. Wang Sheng thanked the housekeeper. Thank you, brother. We'll take our leave first. After addressing him as brother, the housekeeper watched heavy snow fly across the sky above Carefree City. Wang Sheng and Lin Xiao were like 2 huge birds as they leaped on a heavy snow's back. In the blink of an eye, they disappeared from the sight of countless experts in Carefree City. The housekeeper watched the 2 of them leave and praised in his heart, immortals. Immediately after, the housekeeper shuddered and hurriedly left for the city lord manor. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, the assassin hall of Carefree City began to sell Wang Sheng's exclusive information at a price of 10,000 gold coins. In theory, no one should be interested in a piece of information that was sold at such a high price. However, in the blink of an eye, more than 100 copies were sold. It had to be said that LV Wonho's business methods were definitely much better than Mei Er's in the past. The news quickly spread to the various families through various channels. When the upper echelons of each family received the news, they were shocked. Some families with patriarchs hurriedly passed the news to their patriarchs. When the group of patriarchs saw the news, they had strange expressions and different thoughts. In the end, the seeds of doubt were still sown and quickly spread throughout the world. The whereabouts of those patriarchs were also inquired about, whether intentionally or unintentionally. Some of the patriarchs who were kept in the dark were similarly suspicious. The four primordial souls that Wang Sheng mentioned were clearly the four patriarchs whose descendants were exterminated and killed when the seal was first undone. Coupled with the subtle timing of the Shi family's patriarch's death, they could not help but suspect that this was a conspiracy. Just this news alone had caused an uproar for more than 10 days. And in these 10 days, no one knew the whereabouts of Wang Sheng and Lin Xiao. It was as if they had already left this world and there was no news of them. Gan Qingchuan, after half a month, when everyone thought that Wang Sheng and Lin Xiao had already disappeared and would never appear again, a voice suddenly resounded in everyone's ears from above the Gan nation's capital. When I was advancing, your people attacked me. I want an explanation. Chapter 1560. What explanation do you want? How could Gan Qingchuan, the patriarch of the Gan family, sit still when the entire city was being hooted? He immediately shouted at the sky. His voice also reverberated throughout the city. Everyone heard him. However, Gan Qingchuan's voice was evidently more dignified. It was clear that the patriarch's voice had suppressed Wang Sheng's. Many people from the Gan family cheered. Gan Qingchuan could tell that it was Wang Sheng's voice. Furthermore, the truth that he was talking about could not be anyone else other than Wang Sheng. I'll wait for you outside the city. Wang Sheng's voice sounded once again. Everyone heard that he was still in the same position, but Gan Qingchuan already knew where Wang Sheng was. When Gan Qingchuan and a bunch of experts from the Gan family rushed to the flat ground at the foot of the Easter Mountain, Gan Qingchuan's pupils shrank when he saw the two people standing side by side. Beside Wang Sheng was the nightmarish lady that he was familiar with. Are you planning to make a move, Miss Lin? Gan Qingchuan cupped his hands and asked from afar. If Lin Xiao was planning to make a move, he and the people behind him would have to prepare for their funeral. If your people aren't going to make a move, it'll be between the two of us. One-on-one. Lin Xiao did not answer. She only stared coldly at Wang Sheng. Gan Qingchuan's eyes flashed with a glint of excitement. If Lin Xiao was not going to make a move, and she was only going to fight one-on-one with Wang Sheng, what was there for Gan Qingchuan to worry about? However, he still looked at Lin Xiao. Without her nod, he did not dare to believe Wang Sheng's words easily. When Lin Xiao saw Gan Qingchuan looking over, she nodded slowly. Gan Qingchuan immediately calmed down. Lin Xiao was a person of her word. If she said that she would not participate, she would definitely not participate. The Gan family's attack this time was indeed related to the agreement that Gan Qingchuan had made with Dai Hao and the others. They had thought that they could take the opportunity to kill Wang Sheng or cripple Wang Sheng so that Wang Sheng wouldn't have a chance to speak up. However, things didn't turn out the way they wanted. If they wanted to blame someone, they could only blame themselves for not acting decisively when Wang Sheng first arrived at the Carefree City. After waiting for a month, when Wang Sheng advanced, the situation had already gone out of control. All of you back off. Just watch. Gan Qingchuan was very confident in facing Wang Sheng. When he captured Wang Sheng with Dai Hao and the others, Gan Qingchuan had already investigated Wang Sheng's abilities. Even though Wang Sheng claimed to have advanced to stage 13, he had only advanced for more than 10 days. He couldn't compare to a veteran like Gan Qingchuan. The Gan family members were naturally full of confidence in their ancestor. They also vaguely guessed Lin Xiao's identity. If they could personally witness their ancestor killing or severely injuring Wang Sheng on the spot, while Lin Xiao couldn't do anything due to her pride, it would definitely be very tempting. However, the tempting scene didn't happen as expected. After more than 10 breaths, Gan Qingchuan spat out fresh blood. He was half lying on the ground, and his eyes slowly lost their focus. Wang Sheng also spat out fresh blood. However, he wiped the corner of his mouth casually and walked back to Lin Xiao's side with his chest puffed out. When he reached her, he no longer spat out blood, and his breathing had completely stabilized. Both of them didn't intend to waste any time. They clashed head-on with their fists, and the victor was decided. The essence returning hand's offensive strength was increased by more than 200 times. Wang Sheng and Gan Qingchuan clashed head-on. The result was that Wang Sheng was lightly injured and spat out blood, while Gan Qingchuan's entire arm was shattered. His internal organs were destroyed, and he was no longer alive. He was only left with a little bit of life. Song Lian wasn't here, so no one could pull Gan Qingchuan back from the bridge of helplessness. 100 source spirits advancing to the 13th stage realm and completing the three-clawed Azure Dragon transformation not only brought a powerful offensive strength, but also 100 times more defensive strength. Even if it was Gan Qingchuan's attack to Wang Sheng, the damage it brought wasn't as severe as the backlash from the essence returning hand. Wang Sheng and Lin Xiao were already too lazy to look at those legend rank experts. They called for heavy snow to leave. Wang Sheng's revenge only needed to kill Gan Qingchuan. The Gan family's group of legend rank experts looked like they had lost their parents as they crazily charged at Gan Qingchuan. With Gan Qingchuan's death, the Gan family's position as one of the 7 great families became precarious. Those parties that obtained huge benefits from Shurg definitely wouldn't mind dividing up the Gan family. As one of the 7 great families, there was a high possibility that they would face countless crazy revenge attacks from experts crazily fighting for territory. The world was in an uproar when the news spread. The Duke of Everlasting Victory, Wang Sheng, killed the Gan family's patriarch in a one-on-one fight in front of everyone. After the Gan family's inspection, the Gan family's patriarch's internal organs were all shattered. This definitely wasn't cheating or plotting. At that moment, everyone had different thoughts. Some were happy, while others were worried. Of course, the Dai family knew their own situation. However, as the Dai family's patriarch, Dai Hao definitely wouldn't run away in the face of such a situation. Therefore, 5 days later, the Dai family also welcomed Wang Sheng and Lin Xiao. The conditions were slightly different from the Gan family. Dai Hao, Dai Sheng, and Dai Xiao had to give Wang Sheng an explanation. Dai Xiao was too sinister, and Wang Sheng didn't want him to live anymore. Patriarch Dai Sheng hadn't fully recovered from his serious injuries, and his fighting strength was less than half. Over the past 2 months, Dai Xiao had obtained another transcendent origin soul. However, it could only recover to the epic stage. The only person who could fight Dai Xiao was Dai Hao. Whether it was Dai Hao, Dai Sheng, or Dai Xiao, they were all regretting being so greedy. They clearly had 4 superb origin souls to absorb, but they were still greedy and wanted to absorb Wang Sheng's origin soul. In the end, they had to face an insurmountable obstacle now. How good would it have been if they had killed Wang Sheng back then? Unfortunately, they couldn't go back and change everything no matter how much they regretted it. Lin Xiao was still supervising the battle, and the Dai family's experts didn't gang up. Although Wang Sheng was said to be very powerful, Dai Hao might still be able to fight him. If they wanted to play other tricks, Wang Sheng still had Lin Xiao, who was even more ruthless. She was a ruthless person who could wipe out the entire Dai family. No one was willing to face that outcome. Even if Patriarch Dai Hao failed, the Dai family was still around. There were so many experts from the Dai family. Even though they were ranked at the bottom, they could still maintain the prestige of the 7 great families. A few days had passed in the Gan family. Weren't they still safe and sound? Countless experts from a Dai family watched as Wang Sheng killed Dai Hao cleanly, while Wang Sheng was only slightly injured. Dai Sheng and Dai Xiao attacked together, but they couldn't escape Wang Sheng's retaliation after he was injured. Wang Sheng could read the remorse in Dai Xiao's eyes before he died. It was a pity that there was no turning back. In front of countless experts from the Dai clan, one of the 7 great clans, Wang Sheng killed their 2 patriarchs and their clan leader. Together with Lin Xiao, they swaggered out of the Dai nation's capital on a snowstorm. As news spread, everyone realized that the world was no longer the same. Huge changes were about to take place. Chapter 1561. After Wang Sheng and Lin Xiao left on heavy snow, there was no more news of them. At least in the eyes of the world, that was the case. There was no news of anyone seeing the 2 of them again. Of course, Wang Sheng did not leave without any worries. When no one noticed, Wang Sheng made a trip back to the capital city's Duke Chongqing residence without anyone noticing and took away a few messenger birds under Mei Er's joyful but bitter eyes. In the future, Wang Sheng and Mei Er could communicate with each other through messenger birds and would no longer lose contact. Mei Er shut up very smartly. Other than Mei Er, Rosa, Aki, and Song Yin, there was no one else who knew about this matter. Even Tantai Yao and the patriarch did not know. Regarding Wang Sheng, other than the women who had physical contact with Wang Sheng, Mei Er did not divulge it to anyone. The women were gratified and gnashed their teeth in hatred at the same time. Their man accompanied another woman to tour the world. If it were anyone else, they would not be very happy. It was just that Lin Xiu's identity was too special. Be it Mei Er or Song Yin, they all knew that Wang Sheng was actually targeting Lin Xiu right from the start. It was just that they intercepted him midway, so he could not flare up even if he wanted to. Of course, even if he flared up without Wang Sheng by his side, who could he flare up for? Wang Sheng and Lin Xiu did not stay in the hinterland of the Central Plains at all. They directly rode on heavy snow and went overseas. Lin Xiu was not like Aki, who did not have the strength to protect herself. Moreover, Wang Sheng's current 8-words formula was already sufficient for him to protect one more person. Hence, the various extreme sports that Wang Sheng had tried in this world previously that left everyone dumbfounded, Wang Sheng brought Lin Xiu to play them all. Riding on heavy snow to fly to a height of more than 30,000 meters, and then carrying a parachute bag, she skydived to the limit. She experienced the experience of extreme speed at a high altitude and a brief sense of weightlessness. Even with Lin Xiu's toughness, she was still shouting and laughing in excitement. After that, Lin Xiu became addicted to it. She had to parachute jump at least a dozen times before she finally got over this addiction. In the past, they had to run and take off from a high place. Now, they didn't have to go through so much trouble. They could just jump from heavy snows back. It was higher, faster, and the scenery was more beautiful. Especially on the boundless azure sea, it was simply enjoyable. Lin Xiu's bell-like laughter almost resounded through the sky above the sea. In the high-altitude glider suit, 2 people jumped off from the back of heavy snow. 2 figures swept across the sea at high speed, like 2 elegant petrels. In addition to leaving behind a flickering light and passing shadow, there was also the joy of Lin Xiu's carefree laughter. Once, when the 2 of them were skimming across the surface of the sea, a big fish jumped out from behind and tried to swallow them. 2 figures flew past the big fish's mouth at an extremely fast speed, and one of them even broke off a big tooth. It was truly thrilling and exciting. Riding the speedboat on the sea, Wang Sheng even released his aura in this familiar sea, attracting 3 swordfish monsters. With them pulling the speedboat, it was as exciting as flying at a low altitude on the sea, making people enjoy it so much that they forgot to turn back. Wearing a tight-fitting diving suit, they dived into the shallow sea of about 100 meters. The novel and magnificent underwater world, with countless wonders that couldn't be seen on land, directly attracted all of Lin Xiu's attention. She hated that she couldn't stay underwater all day. Relatively speaking, the deep-sea area of several hundred meters was not interesting. Apart from being able to test her limit of endurance, there was no light. She could only rely on her aura to sense the surroundings, completely lacking the enjoyment of the beautiful underwater world of the shallow sea. After going there once, Lin Xiu didn't want to go again. She directly stayed in the shallow sea, swimming around like a mermaid. Wang Sheng also took Lin Xiu to those dangerous sea areas on heavy snow, using his aura to stimulate the sea surface. Very soon, Lin Xiu saw super powerful and huge sea monsters that she had never imagined before. There were huge tentacles and tough bodies. In short, just the aura alone was an eye-opener for Lin Xiu. Of course, it was not just the sea. Wang Sheng and Lin Xiu could easily ride on the snow to reach the polar regions, highlands, and various other areas that were rarely visited by humans. In just a few short months, they had experienced countless scenes of the outer realm. Lin Xiu's eyes were filled with surprise. In addition to all kinds of beautiful scenery and all kinds of excitement, Wang Sheng didn't treat Lin Xiu badly in terms of food. All kinds of delicacies from all over the world, Wang Sheng could rely on his strong sense of smell and taste to cook them to make Lin Xiu salivate. If not for Lin Xiu's high cultivation and being able to easily consume these calories, maybe just these delicacies alone could turn Lin Xiu into a beautiful fatty. Wang Sheng and Lin Xiu had a great time playing, but the situation in the entire world was in turmoil. After the Gan family and Dai family lost their old ancestors, they rapidly withdrew their forces and no longer dared to expand wantonly. They first protected their current base before anything else. Unfortunately, hope was beautiful, but reality was cruel. The two families' hearts were pounding with fear for more than a month, feeling that the situation didn't get worse because of this. Just when everyone started to relax a little, a thunderous blow suddenly arrived. With the old ancestors participating, at the same time, countless legend rank experts joined in. The attack came so suddenly that the two families didn't have time to prepare before the thunderous means directly descended. The experts in the two countries' capitals were the first to be wiped out. All parties seemed to have made an agreement, not giving the two families any time to prepare. In just a short half a day, more than 90% of the high-end combat power of the two families were directly wiped out. The remaining were all smart people. They had long sensed that something was wrong and found a way of retreat. Seeing that the situation wasn't good, they immediately slipped away. Comparatively speaking, the Dai family's casualties were more tragic. When Wang Sheng released that Dai Hao had a special ability to hunt the soul of someone who had just died, this outcome was already determined. The Dai family's core valley in the grounds of Thousand Despair had already been taken by the old ancestors to take a look. There was indeed a possibility of this cultivation direction. To prevent anything from happening in the future, a few old ancestors even destroyed the valley where Dai Hao was. Next was to divide the Dai family's and Gan family's territories. A few powers that weren't originally part of the 8 great clans with old ancestors took advantage of the situation to rise. Of course, the old 5 great clans also reaped huge benefits. In a few months, all parties slowly divided new territories and things slowly calmed down. Ordinary people thought that this was the peace of the world, and the small powers thought so too. However, no one knew that the higher-ups of the powers that had old ancestors were all very worried. Some things were top secret, and outsiders didn't even know what was happening. Old ancestor, is there really no way to resolve this? Mayor looked at the weak old ancestor and asked worriedly, why don't we let the Dao sect's old ancestor Ling Su come and try? Opposite Mayor was the old ancestor who looked like a young girl who was about the same age as Mayor. Her face was still that of a young girl, but her black hair had already turned snow white. Chapter 1562. It's useless to look for anyone. The patriarch smiled and shook his head. 500 years has allowed us to advance 4 stages consecutively. It's like we haven't stopped cultivating at all. How can we not pay a price? The patriarch seemed very open-minded, and his tone was very relaxed. However, Mayor and the rest didn't think so. The patriarch's health was deteriorating, and they could see it with their naked eyes. How could it be just a small price? In this round of expansion, Li Zhenfang didn't interfere in the Gan Kingdom and the Dai Kingdom's territories. However, they took over the special shops in the capitals and a few important cities of the 2 kingdoms. They were in charge of exchanging gold notes from each kingdom. The 2 kingdoms learned from Li Zhenfang and set up their own shops. These businesses overlapped with Li Zhenfang's. When Li Zhenfang extended their hands, no one objected. Li Zhenfang still hadn't patriarch. Even without him, Wang Sheng's ability to kill Gan Qingchuan, Dai Hao, and Dai Sheng was enough to make everyone retreat. They were even worried that Li Zhenfang would ask for too little, and Wang Sheng would be displeased. Because of this, Mayor negotiated with all the parties. She used the territories that were supposed to be under Duke Chongqing's residence to exchange for the shops of the other kingdoms. In a short period of time, Li Zhenfang quickly became a nationwide chain. 2 months ago, all the parties would have been thinking of ways to kill Wang Sheng and Lin Xiu. However, no one had such thoughts now. All the patriarchs showed signs of rapid aging to varying degrees. The old ancestor of Triumph Palace could be considered to be in a good condition. After all, she also practiced some youth-preserving heart techniques, so she still had white hair and a youthful complexion. The patriarchs of the other families were all old men now. Song Yin had also mentioned that Song Lian was aging very quickly. Even though Song Lian used his superb medical skills to slow down the process, it was still the same. Even Song Lian was like that. Those patriarchs who didn't have Song Lian's medical skills or Triumph Palace's youthful techniques were simply too old to look at. In fact, there were already signs of this change half a year ago. At that time, Mayer could already see a few strands of white hair on the patriarch's head. After annexing the Gon family and the Dai family, the other parties tacitly stopped and began to digest these territories. A month ago, unbeknownst to outsiders, the various great ancestors had secretly come to the capital. Every day, they would gather in the royal theater. If they weren't listening to the great grandmaster's performance, then they would listen to the Royal Symphony Orchestra's performance. In their free time, they would also discuss matters for the future. Mayor, can you contact Duke Chongsheng? Grand Elder Ancestor suddenly asked. He didn't wait for Mayer to think about how to answer and directly said her purpose. No matter whether we can contact him or not, it's best to find a way to inform him and ask him to go back to the capital with Miss Lin. Let them return to the capital? Mayer, Rosa, and Aki's eyes widened. They couldn't believe their ears. We're already like this now. I believe Miss Lin won't be any better than us. Grand Elder Ancestor nodded and said calmly, since the grudge was formed 500 years ago, then it's better for us, the old guys from 500 years ago, to settle it. There's no need to implicate you juniors. Grand Elder. Mayer was shocked. She didn't expect these great ancestors to think like this. Settling it meant that everyone had to fight one last time. No matter which side won, there would be no lack of deaths. We've made up our minds. We just want to see Miss Lin's Real skills again. Grand Elder Ancestor's face was filled with longing and excitement, as if he had seen Lin Xiu's real strength. Grand Elder Ancestor turned to Mayer, and his eyes were very gentle. Actually, we want to see Duke Chongsheng's skills more. How do you let a 5-star soul cultivator like you cultivate to this stage in such a short time? Mayer, you're already in the epic realm, and you're about to advance to the 12th stage, right? Mayer was startled for a moment before she nodded. She had hidden it well before, but she didn't think that Grand Elder Ancestor would see through it. If I were a few hundred years younger, I would absolutely not leave this kind of man for you all. Grand Elder Ancestor made a rare joke, but he didn't stay any longer as he turned around and left, seemingly going to listen to music with those Grand Elders again. Mayer, Rosa, and Aki looked at each other in dismay. After a while, Mayer then let out a long sigh and said, "Send a message to Duke and let him decide." When Wang Sheng received Mayer's messenger bird message, he was lying on the beach with Lin Xiu, comfortably sunbathing on the island. Of course, Wang Sheng looked very happy, but there was also a faint sorrow in his heart. Lin Xiu had always been very happy and looked very healthy on the surface, but Wang Sheng's cultivation was now at the 13th stage realm and with the 9 words incantation and 8 words formula. Although Lin Xiu didn't allow him to check on Lin Xiu's body condition, but Wang Sheng could still sense that Lin Xiu's body and cultivation were deteriorating. Lin Xiu didn't notice, or maybe she noticed, but didn't say. Lin Xiu's head was already a mix of gray and white. Is it because of forcefully raising my cultivation? Wang Sheng had suspected this before, so he took the opportunity when Lin Xiu was in a good mood to ask this question. Wang Sheng was very concerned if it was because Lin Xiu had used some method to deplete herself to raise Wang Sheng's cultivation after they had sex for the first time. It's not that serious. Lin Xiu shook her head and only replied that sentence, but didn't explain in detail. This kind of situation made Wang Sheng very worried, especially when he discovered that Lin Xiu's head had already started to show signs of white hair, which made him even more alarmed. Mayer's letter made Wang Sheng understand a lot. This kind of degradation should be the sequela of their collective seal for 500 years. Although Lin Xiu also used the eye seal method, but she didn't rely on the most scientific method to achieve the goal, and there were some imperfections which would lead to this kind of consequence. In this kind of situation, no matter how strong one's cultivation was, it was impossible to compete with time. Lin Xiao must have known, otherwise, she wouldn't have played so crazily with Wang Sheng. She probably wanted to cherish every moment with Wang Sheng and not let her life have any regrets. They want to settle things with you one last time. Finally, Wang Sheng still told Lin Xiao the intentions of those old ancestors in the capital. On this point, Wang Sheng absolutely respected Lin Xiao and would never make a choice for her. No matter what choice Lin Xiao made, Wang Sheng would support it. Okay, Lin Xiao replied without hesitation, and the smile on her face was extremely bright. I'll fulfill their wish. Consider it as a reward for helping me verify the cultivation path all these years. I'll personally send them on their way. There were some words that were not said, but Wang Sheng could also add on to them. Dying in the hands of Lin Xiao was much more glorious than dying of old age in bed. A week later, Wang Sheng and Lin Xiao rode on heavy snow and swaggered down to Duke Chongqing's residence. Duke Chongqing's return caused the entire capital to boil. Chapter 1563. Duke Chongqing's residence became a sea of joy, at least in the inner courtyard. After Wang Sheng sat down in the guest hall, he saw hundreds of beautiful faces with tears in their eyes, but a smile on their faces. After comforting the women, Wang Sheng was able to have a small gathering with Mei and the others. However, after introducing Lin Xiao and Mei to each other, before Wang Sheng could say anything, Mei nervously whispered to Wang Sheng, "Duke, quickly go and have a look. The old Taoist is dying." When Mei and Wang Sheng said old Taoist, they must be referring to old Taoist Ling Su. Upon hearing this, Wang Sheng immediately couldn't sit still and stood up. Where is he? Lin Xiao also knew old Taoist Ling Su. Lin Xiao also had a good impression of this old Taoist who took care of Wang Sheng when Wang Sheng's cultivation was low. In the guest room of the residence, Mei immediately led the way to the guest room. After sending the messenger bird to Wang Sheng, Mei secretly sent someone to fetch the old Taoist. The whole world knew that the old Taoist was seriously injured, but they all thought that he had almost recovered. Even Wang Sheng thought so, but they didn't expect it to be so serious. The Laojun Temple blocked the news, and it didn't tell Wang Sheng. It was said that this was the intention of the old Taoist Ling Su, afraid that it would affect Wang Sheng, until now. In a tight isolation formation, Wang Sheng saw the weak and unconscious old Taoist Ling Su. With just a glance, he understood the old Taoist condition. He had not recovered from his serious injuries and had been holding on for so long. It was all thanks to the 9 syllables of the old Taoist and a large amount of precious medicine that he had been able to hold on until now. Without hesitation, Wang Sheng threw out a series of 8-word formulas. Ever since he reached the 13th stage, Wang Sheng had become extremely adept at the 8-word formula. The effect of his treatment was many times stronger than the 1-word formula of the old Taoists. In just a moment, the old Taoist complexion had improved a lot, and his breathing had stabilized. The dozens of old Taoists around him breathed a sigh of relief. The strongest among them had only just mastered the use of each word of the 9 secret words. They were far from being able to use multiple words at the same time. Dozens of old Taoists have been using the 9 syllables on old Taoist Ling Su almost day and night. Only then did the old Taoist persevere, as long as his condition was stabilized and did not worsen. Seeing that Wang Sheng had easily solved the problem that so many people could not do, everyone finally felt relieved. At this time, Wang Sheng realized that the Grand Abbé Dean was also there. Seeing that Wang Sheng was looking at him, the Grand Abbé Dean had a guilty look in his eyes. When Wang Sheng faced the whole world alone, the Grand Abbé Dean did not stand firmly on Wang Sheng's side. Of course, Wang Sheng had his own intentions, but the Grand Abbé Dean had to admit that he had considered more for the sake of the Grand Abbé Dean. Wang Sheng smiled at the Grand Abbé Dean, indicating that he did not need to think too much. If there are any disciples who are going to advance in the near future, they can advance by seeing your brother's side when the Reiki of heaven and earth temper their bodies. This way, he can recover the fastest. Now, you can use some nourishing medicine. Everyone nodded. Wang Sheng looked at the old Taoist and used the 8 words formula again. Only then did he stop and think for a while. There will be a bustling scene in a few days. I think he will definitely not want to miss it. Everyone knew what the bustling scene would be in a few days. Today, Wang Sheng had returned. It was believed that in less than 5 days, all the legendary masters in the world would rush to the capital. No one would doubt this. You guys go out first. Wang Sheng waved at the group of old Taoists and let them leave, leaving only Mayer, Lin Xiao, and the Grand Abbey Dean. Protect me. The old Taoist had such a lively temperament. Thinking about how he had helped him kill many ill-intentioned pursuers in the land of 1,000 devastations, he did not help on the surface, but had contributed greatly behind the scenes. Wang Sheng could not let him miss the battle between Lin Xiao and the group of old ancestors. Without Wang Sheng's instructions, the old Taoist outside had already surrounded the place. Outside, the hundreds of legendary beauties from Duke Chongqing's mansion had surrounded the place. There was also the Grand Abbey Dean of the Epic Realm, Mayer of the 12th Realm, and Lin Xiao. It would be a miracle if anyone could hurt Wang Sheng here. Wang Sheng sat down cross-legged and carefully pondered in his mind. Then, he sent out 2 words to the old Taoist Ling Su. Army, swordsman. The Grand Abbey Dean heard these 2 words, but what Mayer heard was slightly different. It was a little vague, but in Lin Xiao's ears, she did not know how many words were superimposed. Wang Sheng could already use the 8 words formula, but it was Wang Sheng's first time using the 9 words formula. This was a fusion of the 9 words formula, the most powerful 9 words formula that Wang Sheng could imagine. It was just 2 words, but Wang Sheng's entire body's spiritual energy was drained along with the use of 2 9 words formula. How powerful was the spiritual energy of the 13th realm? The body of the old Taoist Ling Su, who was lying on the bed, shook violently following Wang Sheng's 2 9 words formula. He spat out a mouthful of blood with black spots and groaned. The old Taoist had been in a coma for nearly 2 months. He had never moved, but now he was spitting out blood and groaning. It could be said that it had directly pulled the old Taoist back from the brink of death. Based on this effect, the old Taoist would wake up in at most 2 or 3 more times. The Grand Abbey Dean's eyes were about to pop out. He looked at everything with an incredulous gaze, his face full of disbelief. He was also someone who had cultivated the 9 words formula, but the effect of Wang Sheng's 9 words formula was so different from his. It was simply shocking to the point of speechlessness. Wang Sheng was already lying in Mayer's arms. The 2 9 words formula had exhausted Wang Sheng's entire body strength. It was even a little difficult for him to stand. Fortunately, he was just exhausted. After a night's rest, he could still be full of energy. The first night of his return passed peacefully in the shock and speculation of all parties. When Wang Sheng was resting, the representatives sent by the royal family and other families were all blocked. At most, they only saw the mistress of Duke Chongqing's residence, Mayer. No one could see Wang Sheng himself. As soon as Wang Sheng returned, it seemed that many people in the capital city had a backbone. The staff of Qianshang Yuan Runzi Workshop, Dream Workshop, Lizen Workshop, and Elegant Charm Workshop were all full of energy. In front of the guests, they seemed to be a lot straighter. The masters of Linglong Pavilion were in a good mood. In just a few days, they had produced many fine works. Even the Grand Master Band had returned to Duke Chongqing's residence and was practicing in the mansion's Grand Theater. Within a few days, legendary masters from all over the country had come to the capital city. All kinds of inns and private residences of various families were almost full. Everyone was looking forward to the earth-shattering battle that would take place in 10 days. Tomorrow was the day of the battle. Everyone in the capital city was looking forward to tomorrow's battle. They were excited, and trembling. No one could sleep well. What was surprising was that at this juncture, the remaining 16 ancestors came together to visit Wang Sheng and Lin Xiao as if they had made an appointment. In tomorrow's battle, we can die without regrets. The ancestor of Triumph Palace, Wang Sheng, had been living outside since his return. This time, he spoke on behalf of the other 15 ancestors. Today, we have some doubts, and we hope Miss Lin can dispel them. Chapter 1564. The voice was so loud that it could be heard clearly in the surrounding streets. There was no need for anyone to report on their behalf. The people in Changshan Duke's mansion could hear it clearly. Everyone who heard this was dumbfounded. This was the first time in history that such a thing had happened. Was this a joke? What was even more surprising was that Changshan Duke's mansion actually opened the door wide. Changshan Duke Wang Sheng personally came out and welcomed the 16 ancestors in. Similarly, several high-level members of the 16 ancestors' families were also able to enter. Song Yin of the Song family was also among them. She always looked at Wang Sheng with a trace of bitterness in her eyes. The emperor himself also personally came to visit, and the 3 great priests were all present. In addition, some of the high-level members of the major forces without ancestors added up to almost 100 people. They also received permission to enter Changshan Duke's mansion. Lin Xiu was waiting for them in the lobby. After more than 20 days, Lin Xiu's hair had all turned white, but her face was still the same as before. Of the 16 ancestors, only the female ancestor from Victoria's Return Palace was able to maintain such a state. The others were all old and frail. The 16 supreme ancestors among the various families, in front of Lin Xiu, were obedient like the most devout juniors, respectfully saluting, not perfunctory at all. Lin Xiu also very formally returned the greeting. In her eyes, there was no hatred of the destruction of the family. She had never cared about those things. She was curious about what these people were doing here. Were they really here to ask for answers? The various high-level members followed their ancestors to salute, and then under the guidance of the legendary beauties of Changshan Duke's mansion, one by one sat a little further away. At this time, the various high-level members discovered that these beauties of Changshan Duke's mansion had almost all advanced to the legendary realm. During this period of time, under the management of Mayor, Changshan Duke's mansion did not participate in the outside world at all, which also made them ignore many things. Now that they saw so many legendary experts, they were all surprised. The Pavilion of Delicacy had merged with Liz Hen Lane. This was already old news. If the Pavilion of Delicacy was included, it could be said that the legendary experts of Changshan Duke's mansion were absolutely no less than any other family. Not to mention that Duke Changshan, Wang Sheng, was already a 13th stage realm top exponent. Even if the old ancestors won 16 against 1, they probably wouldn't dare to do anything to Duke Changshan's residence. At the same time, there was also the Grand Master of Laojun Temple and old Taoist Ling Su, who was already awake and able to walk. When they saw the Grand Master and old Taoist Ling Su, all parties knew that they could no longer do anything to Duke Changshan's residence in the future unless they reenacted the joint strangulation from 500 years ago. Tomorrow, we will settle the scores from 500 years ago. Song Lian stood up and opened his mouth. The old man's beard was a foot long, but his mind was very forgetful. He cupped his hands at Lin Xiu and said, "Today we, as juniors, would like to consult Miss Lin on a few questions regarding cultivation. Would Miss Lin be willing to enlighten us?" This time, Song Lian's words could be heard clearly by the thousands of people present. Hearing that he was here to ask for advice on cultivation, the people who followed him and were even more dumbfounded. Was this even possible? Tomorrow they were going to decide the victor and loser, and today they were here to ask for advice on cultivation. What everyone didn't expect was that Lin Xiu actually didn't reject him. She smiled slightly and raised her hand to make a pleased gesture, inviting Song Lian to continue. Song Lian didn't stand on ceremony as he directly told her about his current situation and the things which he couldn't understand. He didn't speak quickly, but his voice was very clear, apparently to give those people who followed him a chance. Everyone pricked up their ears, deeply afraid that they would miss a single word. This was a once-in-a-blue-moon opportunity. A 13-stage realm top exponent asking another possibly 14-stage realm top exponent for advice, they probably wouldn't have a better chance in their entire lives. Lin Xiao pondered slightly and opened her mouth to explain. Her words were very simple, but it went straight to the point, and in just a few words, she pointed out the crux of the matter. Song Lian's gaze was sparkling as he was so agitated that even his beard started to tremble. Lin Xiao just used a few words, and the fog in front of him was swept away. It was as though a golden pathway had appeared in front of his eyes, leading straight to the front which he yearned for the most. The other 15 old ancestors also sank into deep thoughts. As for the other people who were listening by the side, and those legendary beauties, all of them were thinking furiously. Even if they didn't really understand now, they also wanted to remember every single word and sentence which they heard firmly in their hearts, not daring to miss a single point. Other than the old ancestors, those who were able to roughly understand a little were only Wang Sheng, old Taoist Ling Su, Mei Er, Song Yin, and the 3 great reverends plus Marquis LV Wenho and Ling Er. The others were all confused as they vaguely felt that it was the logic, but as to how to do it, they still didn't understand. Song Lian sat down in satisfaction, and it was another old ancestor who went up. Similarly, he cupped his hands in obeisance and bowed respectfully before he voiced out his doubts. Lin Xiao still pondered for a moment and gave the answer in just a few sentences. It was very simple, but it was extremely crucial, making that old ancestor who asked the question to be enlightened as he was overjoyed. Then it was the next one. The 16 old ancestors took turns to ask for advice. Their attitudes were all extremely good, completely putting themselves in the position of a disciple who was asking for advice from their master. Wang Sheng also seriously pondered the questions they asked. Everyone's cultivation was similar, so if they encountered something, there was a great possibility that Wang Sheng would also encounter it. With these questions on the detours that they took, Wang Sheng would be able to take a lot fewer detours. After listening to them once, he benefited a lot. After one round, Song Lian, who was the first to ask, went up again to ask for the second question. Lin Xiao still answered it. For a whole day, Lin Xiao replied to no less than 100 questions from the 16 old ancestors, but none of them could stump her. At the end of the day, Lin Xiao's cultivation was strong and her knowledge was broad, making everyone admire her from the bottom of their hearts. In addition, tomorrow was going to be a life and death battle, but Lin Xiao could actually still answer the opponent's questions so calmly today, not at all afraid that the opponent would become stronger because of it. Her broad-mindedness and magnanimity conquered everyone present. What was even more incomprehensible was that Lin Xiao actually invited these 16 old ancestors to have a sumptuous dinner at Duke Chongqing residence and listen to a great grandmaster's concert in the theater of Duke Chongqing residence with them, adjusting the 16 old ancestors' bodies and minds to the best state. Wang Sheng had absolute confidence in Lin Xiao. In addition to Lin Xiao's strength being a major realm higher than the old ancestors, the process of her answering the questions today also made Wang Sheng feel more at ease. On the other hand, the attitude of the 16 old ancestors coming together today and sincerely asking for advice made Wang Sheng think of an ancient saying on earth: if one hears the Tao in the morning, one can die without regrets in the evening. Chapter 1565. Tens of thousands of people were watching the earth-shattering battle unfold on the mountain outside the capital. It wasn't that they didn't want to fight on a flat and spacious ground, but if that was the case, other than Wang Sheng, Mayor LV Wenho, and Song Yin, who were all in the 12th stage, the rest of the spectators would probably not be able to survive, even if they were epic or legendary experts. Wang Sheng, on the other hand, thought about the night of the full moon, the summit of the Forbidden City, or something, but eventually shook his head and didn't mention it at all. Wang Sheng himself could easily turn the imperial palace into dust, let alone the 16 great ancestors and Lin Xiao. Regardless of whether it was Lin Xiao or the old ancestors, this battle would be a battle that would leave their names in history. Therefore, Lin Xiao was willing to let the old ancestors recuperate to their peak states. The old ancestors, on the other hand, used this method of consulting Lin Xiao to make her more serious and cautious. Of course, in the exchange of advice one day in advance, the 16 ancestors all carried out the etiquette of a disciple. It was not without the intention of expressing their apology to Lin Xiao for being late for 500 years. Unfortunately, there were too many casualties on all sides. So many that even though everyone knew that they had gone overboard in the past, there was no way to reverse the situation. If he had only destroyed the Lin family back then and stopped attacking Lin Xiao, things would not have reached this stage. It should be noted that the destruction of the Lin family did not cost more than 100 people. But Lin Xiao was more open-minded than them. If the Lin family had not used her name to swindle and bully everyone, they would not have ended up like this. This was the Lin family's own problem, and it was normal for all parties to resist. Of course, Lin Xiao was also at fault. She did not care about the Lin family at all, nor did she dissuade those people. She only immersed herself in cultivation, which led to all of this. Today's battle was a battle to resolve their past grievances. No matter who wins or loses, the grudge ends here. The 16 ancestors lined up in a row, clasped their hands at Lin Xiao opposite them, and said this sentence before the battle. Regardless of victory or defeat, the grudge ends here. Lin Xiao was the same, similarly clasping her hands at the 16 opponents. Among the 16 ancestors, at least 14 of them looked at Wang Sheng, who was not far behind Lin Xiao. Regardless of whether they won or lost, they probably wouldn't have the strength to fight against Wang Sheng after today. If Wang Sheng didn't agree, their words would be in vain. Wang Sheng nodded his head silently. This was Lin Xiao's choice. He would respect it. After coming to this world for so many years, Wang Sheng could be said to have cooperated with various parties and also opposed them. Up until now, he had finally gained a firm foothold. Not only that, but he also had the upper hand. The few families that truly hated him had already been exterminated. Wang Sheng did not have the mood to exterminate any family for no reason, as long as those people did not provoke Wang Sheng in the future. Under the gaze of almost all the epic and legendary experts in the world, as well as all the cultivators who were qualified to come to the capital to watch the battle, Lin Xiao and the 16 great ancestors walked and chatted as they entered the forest. That scene didn't look like they were going to fight, but like they were going on an autumn outing. The people who wanted to watch could only watch helplessly. No one dared to take a step forward. All parties had long been warned that those with insufficient cultivation should never cross a certain line, or else their lives would be in danger. Boom! In the quiet forest, a thunderous roar suddenly sounded, opening the prelude to the decisive battle. Right in front of everyone, a small half of the forest suddenly exploded without any warning. Everything in front of everyone's eyes, all kinds of trees, stones, grass, shrubs, everything exploded into pieces and then flew away. The smoke and dust that covered the sky suddenly shrouded the entire forest, and even everyone's eyes darkened. The smoke and dust almost blocked most of the sun, as if someone had created a huge dark cloud. Wang Sheng also looked at this scene with his mouth agape. He secretly calculated in his heart how many tons of TNT would have to explode to create such an effect. Wang Sheng's brain, which had been strengthened by hundreds of source spirits, instantly came to the conclusion that it had to be at least the explosive equivalent of hundreds of tons of TNT. Even Wang Sheng was surprised, so one could imagine how the others felt when they saw this scene. When the roar sounded, no one in the entire capital made sound. Those ordinary people who didn't have the opportunity to watch the battle up close were also shocked by this thunderous movement. As for those cultivators, their eyes all turned blood red. What kind of combat power was this? What kind of cultivation was this? After the first sound, it didn't take long for the second sound to ring out. It was still earth-shattering. Another part of the forest was destroyed, and dust flew everywhere. Next, everyone saw a scene that they would never forget for the rest of their lives. The forest that stretched for more than 10 miles seemed to have been continuously detonated with thousands of tons of high explosives. The scene was magnificent, and it made everyone who saw it excited. It was worth it to have the opportunity to witness such an earth-shattering battle in this life. Everyone thought so, and they didn't doubt it at all. The violent explosion lasted for half a day, and the sound of the explosion began to slow down, and the time between each explosion also grew longer. Everyone wanted to know the result of each explosion, but unfortunately, no one could see it in the dust that covered the sky. It wasn't that no one thought of trying to release their aura to try to feel the situation, but as soon as their aura entered the battle area, they suffered a crazy backlash. There were more than a dozen spectators who vomited blood because of this. But even if they vomited blood, those people were not willing to move an inch. They hurriedly swallowed a mouthful of elixir, and then their eyes never left the forest. They knew that they couldn't see anything, but they were afraid of missing any changes. It was such a contradiction. More than 10 miles of the forest had completely turned into a miserable state of being bombed. There were terrible craters everywhere, and except for the smell of gunpowder, everything else looked like it had been carpet-bombed by more than 400 millimeters of naval guns for 10 consecutive hours. There was nothing else on a mountaintop, only fragments, all kinds of fragments. The original 200 feet high mountaintop had been flattened by a layer, and the sea level had dropped by an average of 10 feet. Every spectator who saw this scene thought in their hearts, if they were in it, what kind of fragments would they become now? Finally, the roar stopped, and everything became silent. In the sky full of dust and smoke, a group of people slowly walked out of the smoke. Those with good eyesight could count clearly in an instant. There were still 16 people on one side and one on the other side. Who won and who lost? Everyone was puzzled, and they were all guessing. After all, everyone walked out on their own. However, Wang Sheng had already understood the situation in an instant. With a wave of his hand, Mayor took Rosa and Tantai Yao and rushed straight to the old ancestor of Triumph Palace. Wang Sheng also signaled to the other families, and they all sent people to take care of their old ancestor. As for Wang Sheng himself, he quickly rushed over to Lin Xiao and supported her. However, as soon as he touched her, Wang Sheng's heart sank. Chapter 1566. Although Lin Xiao walked out on her own, when Wang Sheng came into physical contact with her, he discovered that the position of Lin Xiao's arm that he was supporting was as soft as having no bones. This did not mean that Lin Xiao's arm skin was very elastic, but that there were already no bones supporting inside. In other words, Lin Xiao's arm, at least the upper arm bones, already had a comminuted fracture. Furthermore, it was even the kind that was smashed relatively thoroughly. Wang Sheng gave Lin Xiao 2 8-words formulas without another word. Wang Sheng did not dare to use the 9-words formulas. One use would probably drain more than half of Wang Sheng's spiritual energy. Under this kind of environment, Wang Sheng still did not dare to relax his vigilance. Lin Xiao could still walk on her own. He used the 8-words formulas to stabilize Lin Xiao's injuries first and return to Duke Chongqing Manor before talking again. Without waiting for Wang Sheng to continue inspecting Lin Xiao's injuries, the 16 old ancestors over there already indicated for each of them to support their juniors, to support them to the opposite side of Lin Xiao. The 16 people lined up in a straight line. Each person had 2 people supporting behind them, so that they would not fall limply onto the ground. The Tang family's 2 old ancestors looked to be in the best condition, but in Wang Sheng's eyes, they were already at the end of their rope, only having the last bit of strength left to pass on their last wishes. Fairy Lin, didn't expect that, Fairy Lin. You actually had a decisive battle with us under the circumstances where all the bones in your body were shattered a few days ago. We admire you immensely and die without regrets. The old ancestor who spoke coughed twice and spat out a mouthful of blood before saying this sentence. The moment these words came out, the surrounding people were all dumbstruck. The commotion half a day ago was actually caused under the circumstances where all the bones in Lin Xiao's body were shattered. Furthermore, it was still like this a few days ago. Didn't that mean that after 16 old ancestors came to seek guidance yesterday, and Lin Xiao gave pointers on the doubts in their cultivation, letting their cultivation improve greatly? In the end, 16 against 1, they were still not the practically crippled Lin Xiao's match? Just how powerful this number, one expert 500 years ago, was, everyone already had an idea at this point. No wonder the Tang family old ancestor who spoke immediately changed his address. Yesterday, it was still Miss Lin. Just now, he already called Fairy Lin. It would not be difficult for such a world-shaking expert to be called a fairy. Thank you, Fairy, for fulfilling my wish. The 16 old ancestors struggled and used the last of their strength to bow to Lin Xiao. Then, their bodies went limp in the hands of the juniors they were supporting, and they stopped breathing. Patriarch! Patriarch! A group of people cried out in grief, desperately trying to save the lives of their respective ancestors from the gates of hell. Unfortunately, once that breath was released, even a perfected golden immortal would not be able to bring those people back to life. Wang Xing knew very well why these ancestors wanted to thank Lin Xiao. It was because yesterday, Lin Xiao had demonstrated the power of the swordfish sword that Wang Sheng had given him. No one's weapon could block a single strike from it. If Lin Xiao used a sword, it would be impossible for those people to persist for half a day. It was very likely that they would be done in a dozen breaths. With the old ancestor dying, there were naturally people who stared at Lin Xiao with hateful gazes. It was just that Wang Xing no longer cared about these gazes. When he heard that all the bones in Lin Xiao's body were shattered, he immediately embraced Lin Xiao. Then, using the lightest Tai Chi technique, he laid her down on the bed that had long been prepared. No need to exert yourself. Lin Xiao's tone was still very normal, and there was even a smile on her face. Wang Sheng could not imagine that Lin Xiao's bones had actually all been shattered a few days ago, and she was relying on her powerful spiritual energy to support herself. These few days, because they had to prepare for the battle, Wang Sheng was not very intimate with Lin Xiao. Lin Xiao also did not let Wang Sheng use the 8 words formula to examine her body. Apart from such a big matter, Wang Sheng actually only knew about it now. At the thought of this, Wang Sheng had a kind of regret for his previous actions. If he had known earlier, he would have killed the 16 old ancestors first, and this kind of thing would not have happened. It's great to be able to see you. Lin Xiao looked at Wang Sheng's slightly red eyes and sighed with a smile. Then, a red light flashed in her eyes and slowly faded. When Wang Sheng realized it, there was already another person in Lin Xiao's body. Kill me. Lin Ling was still using the same tone that Wang Sheng used when he first came to this world. It was also the exact same words as when he just came out of the eye seal formation. It was still these 3 familiar words. Although Lin Xiao was very weak, her words were heard clearly by the people around her. Even those who hated Lin Xiao, at this moment, when they saw all the bones in Lin Xiao's body shatter and fight a great battle, and then let the person closest to her kill her, their hearts could not help but tremble. Such an awe-inspiring fairy was actually going to end up like this. Even if they were enemies, they could not conceal their feelings of reverence towards Lin Xiao. Previously, they wished they could skin Lin Xiao alive because the old ancestor was killed, but at this moment, all of them could not bear it. What a pity! No one knew that Lin Xiao's body was no longer Lin Xiao, but Lin Ling, except for Wang Sheng. Hearing these 3 familiar words, kill me, Wang Sheng's heart trembled again. A possibility had already flashed in his mind, but he did not dare to be sure. At this moment, the little person who had never spoken and only deduced cultivation in Wang Sheng's origin soul space suddenly shone brightly. He rushed to the center of Wang Sheng's origin soul space, sat down cross-legged, and clearly transmitted 2 words to Wang Sheng, Nirvana. Then, the little person with the battle consciousness suddenly dissipated and turned into the purest spirit Qi, dissipating in Wang Sheng's origin soul space. One of them, however, followed Wang Sheng's big hand that was caressing Lin Ling's face and entered Lin Ling's origin soul space. In an instant, Lin Ling's eyes lit up, and she looked at Wang Sheng, revealing a warm smile. At this moment, Wang Sheng realized that Lin Ling was not the fool Lin Xiao said at all, but she thought of all this earlier than Lin Xiao, prepared in advance, and helped him along the way. Looking at Lin Ling's smart smile, Wang Sheng also smiled at Lin Ling. When his right hand reached out, there was already a tiger-toothed dagger in his hand. Bending down, Wang Sheng kissed Lin Ling's lips in full view of everyone. In Lin Ling's satisfied smile, the dagger in Wang Sheng's hand quietly stabbed into Lin Ling's heart. Lin Ling's body, which originally looked normal, could no longer maintain its normal appearance when Wang Sheng's dagger stabbed in. Suddenly, it lost its support and collapsed. It was as if Lin Ling had become a flat person in an instant. One did not need to look closely to know that Lin Ling had no breath. However, there were still a few people whose chi swept over, as if to confirm. Countless people saw this scene, and at that moment, everyone who saw it sighed in their hearts. Such an earth-shattering goddess could not escape the power of time in the end. Her bones were all broken a few days ago. Clearly, it was not because of the battle. It could only be because she was sealed in the formation for 500 years. What a pity. Wang Sheng's lips left Lin Ling's lips that had already collapsed. He got up and glanced at everyone, focusing on those few people who were observing Lin Ling's life. There was no joy or sorrow in their eyes, but it made people's hearts tremble. Don't touch my reverse scale in the future. Wang Sheng left a cold sentence and personally moved that bed. He quickly left and went straight to Duke Changxing's residence. Chapter 1567. Dragons had a reverse scale, and those who touched it would definitely die. To Wang Sheng, Lin Ling and Lin Xiu were his reverse scale, and weren't Mei Song Yin, and the rest the same? But this world didn't have dragons, and there were no legends of dragons, so naturally there was no such thing as reverse scale. Everyone was confused when they heard that. Even Mei and Song Yin were the same. But the term reverse scale was very easy to imagine. To put it bluntly, don't provoke him. Wang Sheng's meaning was actually very clear. This time it was Lin Xiu's own choice, and in future no one was to provoke Wang Sheng. Even if Wang Sheng didn't say it, everyone wouldn't have that kind of thinking. After witnessing the might of the battle between the 13th stage realm Old Ancestor and Fairy Lin, who dared to be disrespectful towards Wang Sheng, who was able to kill a 13th stage realm Old Ancestor head-on. If Wang Sheng didn't find trouble with them, they would be thanking the heavens and still dared to provoke him. Did they really think that Wang Sheng didn't dare to exterminate a few more families? What was worth rejoicing was that among the 16 Old Ancestors, Duke Changxing's residence itself had one, and there was also one from the royal family who had a good relationship with Wang Sheng, and one from Song family. In this way, Wang Sheng's words were actually the meaning of the Old Ancestors and Fairy Lin before the battle, to settle all their grudges and end it here. This was the best ending, wasn't it? Although it was indeed a pity that the Old Ancestors had all died, but everyone actually understood that even if there wasn't this huge battle, the Old Ancestors couldn't possibly have much longer. On the contrary, it was this earth-shattering battle which completely let the future generations admire the glory of their predecessors. The Old Ancestors could rest in peace knowing this in the afterlife. To be able to die in Fairy Lin's hands was many times more glorious than dying of old age in bed. Moreover, it could also eliminate so many years of grudges, and from then on the family would no longer have any worries. No matter if it was the Old Ancestors themselves or the descendants of the various families, they all understood that the various Old Ancestors actually died without any regrets. Everyone slowly dispersed as each family brought their Old Ancestors' remains back home to arrange for the funeral. However, there were even more people who rushed toward the completely different mountain forest. They all wanted to see the traces left behind by the great ancestors' battle. Perhaps they might be able to comprehend something from it. That night, Duke Changxing's residence erupted with an aura that once again shocked the entire capital and the entire world. Duke Changxing Wang Sheng had advanced once again. On one hand, it was because a part of Lin Ling's soul, the battle consciousness little person, returned to Lin Ling's body and left a huge amount of spirit chi for Wang Sheng. On the other hand, Wang Sheng finally started to build his reverse scale. The three-clawed azure dragon from before wasn't a real dragon because it didn't have a reverse scale. This time, Lin Ling and Lin Xiu let Wang Sheng build his reverse scale on his source spirit. The cultivation speed of 100 source spirits was very fast. After listening to Lin Xiu's explanation to the old ancestors, Wang Sheng also benefited a lot. When night fell, he finally advanced. 100 three-clawed azure dragons turned into 100 four-clawed black dragons, directly implicating the entire world. It was even more terrifying than the last time when he completed the azure dragon transformation. All the spirit chi in the world was gathering towards the capital, even causing a gale that had never been seen in this season. The entire capital was shaking nonstop, and no one dared to stay in the house. Half a year ago, the story of half of the inner city of Worry-Free City turning into dust told them that it was merely the destruction caused when Wang Sheng advanced to the 13th stage realm. This time, Wang Sheng was trying to break through to the 14th stage realm, an entire realm increase. At this moment, don't talk about people deliberately disturbing him. In the entire world, other than a few 12th-stage realm experts who could get close to the inner courtyard of Duke Changxing's residence, other people didn't even need to talk about getting close. Once they entered that circle, they would be driven by the extremely terrifying large spirit energy mass and instantly fall into an uncontrollable state of spontaneous cultivation. This state was definitely a good thing for those who didn't have bad intentions. Their cultivation speed was simply flying. It was unknown how many 8th and 9th stage realm experts were driven into the state of advancement as the spirit chi from heaven and earth joined the large spirit energy mass. There were also hundreds of legendary experts on the verge of breaking through. It was believed that following Wang Sheng to advance was definitely not an extravagant hope. However, those who had bad intentions, once they were disturbed and had the slightest resistance, they immediately went berserk and spat out blood. The smart ones immediately scrambled out of the inner city and were able to escape this calamity. Those who weren't smart enough immediately died on the way to the assassination. Advancing to the 14th stage realm, to any cultivator, was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Even if they couldn't join in, it was a good thing to be able to feel the aura and observe it. Moreover, they could also be driven to cultivate. This was simply a heaven-sent opportunity. The entire capital fell into a state of fanatical cultivation. Even those ordinary people who didn't have the aptitude to cultivate stayed in the inner city and felt the power of heaven and earth. It was as if there was an additional trace of spirit chi flowing in their bodies. Those who had tried to cultivate in the past immediately began to cultivate according to the methods they had learned. They actually entered the state of cultivation effortlessly and then began to complete the transformation from unattainable to the first stage realm. In the inner city of the capital, in just one day, there were already thousands of people who had advanced. It was as if all the spiritual chi in the world had gathered in the boundary of the capital. Everyone who sensed all this was dumbfounded. While they were overjoyed, they were also filled with fear. What if Wang Sheng wanted to settle the score after he completed his advancement? What should they do? At this moment, Wang Sheng didn't care about what others thought. From a moment he realized that he was about to advance, he told Mayer to make all the preparations. The legendary beauties of the inner court surrounded the inner court. Outside the beauties were the old Taoist from the Laojun Temple, as well as Song Yin and a group of experts from the Song family. There was also a group of experts from the royal family. They were all fortunate enough to be gathered in this circle. The most central area was Wang Sheng himself. There were two people beside him. One was the old Taoist Ling Su, who had yet to recover from his serious injuries but could already move on his own. The other was Lin Ling and Lin Xiu, whose bones had almost turned into powder and could no longer support their bodies. When they were outside the city, everyone had seen Wang Sheng kill Fairy Lin. There were even a few people who used their auras to check, but Fairy Lin's aura was completely gone. Her heartbeat was also gone, and there was not a single trace of life in her. But at this moment, under the support of Wang Sheng's powerful spirit chi, Lin Ling could still breathe weakly. Before the battle, Wang Sheng had a trace of suspicion that Lin Xiu didn't refuse when those ancestors challenged her. Last time, when Lin Xiu's ribs were fractured, Wang Sheng also suspected it, But at that time, he thought that Lin Ling was accidentally injured. After all, before taking back a portion of the soul of the battle consciousness little person, Lin Ling had no cultivation, so it was normal for her to be injured. Later, Lin Xiao didn't let Wang Sheng check. But even without using spirit qi, how could Wang Sheng not know that there was definitely something wrong with Lin Xiao's body? Even if he didn't know that all the bones in her body were broken, he knew that Lin Xiao was definitely injured. When playing, Wang Sheng didn't see Lin Xiao injured, so he could only say that it was an internal problem of Lin Xiao's body. What made Wang Sheng even more suspicious was that the 500 years before and after were a bit special. If Lin Xiao's source soul was a phoenix, then it was even more suspicious. Because Wang Sheng told Lin Xiao that a phoenix was reborn after 500 years. Plus, there was something wrong with Lin Xiao's body. Wang Sheng couldn't help but suspect this. It wasn't until the battle consciousness little person clearly told him that Wang Sheng was completely sure. After returning to the capital, Wang Sheng began to consciously prepare. In fact, a long time ago, Wang Sheng had already started preparing. What he prepared was the artifact that had appeared in many movies and television works to fake death, the tetrodotoxin. Chapter 1568. Tetrodotoxin could paralyze the nervous system at the right dose, giving outsiders the false impression that the poisoned person had died. As long as it was rescued in time, it could be recovered. In this regard, Wang Sheng's 8 words formula was enough. Therefore, Lin Xiao was already dead in front of the world, but Wang Sheng knew that she was not dead. Later, Mei and old Taoist Ling Su also knew about this. Wang Sheng could use the 8 words formula to revive Lin Xiao, who was pretending to be dead, but he could not restore her broken bones. This required a huge amount of spirit qi to do this. Therefore, Wang Sheng did not hesitate to advance next to them, and he just happened to bring along the old Taoist. At the beginning of the advancement, Wang Sheng knew that his guess was correct. In other words, Lin Ling's guess was correct. She indeed needed a process that she felt was death from the bottom of her heart to be able to complete the final nirvana. Broken bones were only damage to the body, but it was not death. Therefore, she kept saying that she wanted Wang Sheng to kill her. Wang Sheng did not dare to bet on what would happen if he really killed Lin Ling. So he could only use this deceptive method to make Lin Ling think that she was already dead. When she regained consciousness again, she would think that this was a normal nirvana process. Wang Sheng did not have this ability to bring the dead back to life. He believed that even if Lin Ling had the phoenix origin soul, she could not have this ability. Tetrodotoxin did this perfectly. This time, Wang Sheng's gamble was right. After Lin Ling regained consciousness, the first step was to immediately guide spirit qi into her body for cultivation and repair the injuries on her body. One must know that Lin Ling did not know how to cultivate in the past, but after the little person with battle consciousness returned, she instantly recovered to the thinking of a super expert like Lin Xiao. In fact, she was even more outstanding than Lin Xiao. This was because she had witnessed Wang Sheng's entire advancement process in Wang Sheng's origin soul space and even deduced the 9 words mantra. This was equivalent to the instant her soul returned. She immediately became the most experienced super master in the world. Wang Sheng was not idle either. Under such circumstances, Wang Sheng did not have to worry about a lack of spirit qi. He began to carefully use the 9 words formula, frantically throwing it at Lin Xiao and the old Taoist. As the spirit qi of the highest level entered her body slowly expanded from a flat state to a normal person's body. Wang Sheng looked at Lin Ling's body, slowly recovering under the nourishment of the spirit qi. He finally felt a little less worried. The old Taoist Ling Su next to him was the same. This level of spirit qi was enough for him to borrow to recover from his injuries. He could also enter a state of advancement after listening to Lin Xiao's explanation and watching the battle. The spirit qi was too vast, and the aura was really strong. Therefore, the aura of Wang Sheng's 100 green dragons advancement directly covered everything. Other than Wang Sheng and Mei and the others who were close to the old Taoist Ling Su's advancement, no one else noticed it. He thought that Lin Ling's recovery from her injuries would be the end, but he did not expect that on the 5th day of Wang Sheng's advancement, the moment Lin Ling completely recovered, Lin Ling also began the advancement process. But it wasn't that Lin Xiu broke through from the 14th-stage realm to the 15th-stage realm directly, but from an unconventional state, she started to cultivate again bit by bit, all the way from 1-stage realm to the 2nd-stage realm, which was exactly the same as Wang Sheng's new carp primordial spirit's advancement. Perhaps this was the process of nirvana rebirth. Wang Sheng was very happy. He brought Lin Ling all the way from the unconventional state to the 13th, and then once again entered the same rhythm of breaking through to the 14th state as Wang Sheng. The people outside were all brought along to cultivate. No one realized that on the 10th day, there was an additional aura of a 14th state master. Wang Sheng and Lin Ling's origin soul spaces collided. The 104-clawed black dragons and the reborn phoenix origin soul swam in their respective origin soul spaces, exchanging spirit chi with each other. Soon, they entered a state of harmony and prosperity. Lin Xiu needs to cultivate for at least 100 years. She said not to worry. She knows everything I know. Lin Ling's consciousness passed directly from the origin soul space. Wang Sheng gave Lin Ling a message that he received it and was completely relieved. What is your origin soul? Lin Ling's consciousness asked again. It's so strange. Dragon. Dragon origin soul. Wang Sheng answered with certainty. Yuan Dragon. The violent advancement lasted for a whole month. Wang Sheng and the people around him were prepared, so their state was still very good. On the other hand, those who were unprepared outside would suffer greatly. During the advancement process, with the support of sufficient spirit chi, they would not die. On the contrary, their cultivation would improve greatly. But once the advancement process ended, so many people all fell seriously ill. There was no way around it. A month without water or food, their bodies were motionless. It was lucky that they didn't die. Their cultivation also advanced. It was just that the price of a serious illness was really too light. The battle between Lin Xiu and the 16 old ancestors had become an immortal legend. That battlefield had become one of the holy lands that countless cultivators had to worship when they came to the capital. Half a year later, the situation in the world completely stabilized. The imperial family was still tirelessly seeking to control the world. The various feudal vassals were still tirelessly seeking to expand their territory and resist the imperial power. Both sides formed a new balance. The most powerful forces among the feudal vassals were no longer the 8 great families, but the 10 great families. Other than the original 5 old families of Tang, Song, Qiu, Feng, and Xia, there was the addition of Carefree City and 4 other great forces. Several families with old ancestors had indeed cultivated many experts and occupied a lot of territory. Song Yin became the legitimate Duke of Song, but she did not always stay in the Song Kingdom. Every year, there would be a few times when she would leave the capital of the Song Kingdom. Mei was still the owner of Li Fong and the mistress of Duke Chongqing's mansion. But the emperor was planning to pass the throne to Mei after his death to become the next empress. He had already drafted an imperial edict and placed it behind the plaque in the golden palace of the imperial city. Rosa followed Mei loyally. Li Fong's business had spread all over the world and became a national bank. Achi had already taken control of the Godly Might prison. She had accidentally discovered a letter written in blood by her younger brother several years ago in her luggage. He was afraid that the Xia family would use his relationship with her to threaten Achi, which would then lead to Wang Sheng killing him. That was why he had put on show of disdain. Now, Aki's brother was an elder of the Xia family. He had a high status and power. Wang Sheng himself was still Duke Chongsheng, but he rarely appeared. There was a very naughty and strange woman next to him. This woman was, of course, Lin Ling. When her hair was white, no one remembered her face. Now that she had recovered her youthful face, people didn't know her identity. Wang Sheng spent half a year traveling the world with Lin Ling. Of course, the other half of the year was spent with Mei or Song Yin. There was no age difference between the three women, but Song Yin and Mei always called her sister. Even if you reveal your identity, they won't dare to do anything to you. Why do you have to hide it? Wang Sheng asked in confusion. Lin Ling's favorite position was to lie in Wang Sheng's arms and hug Wang Sheng like a bear. She didn't look like the #1 master in the world 500 years ago at all. What's the point? Lin Ling didn't care at all. She thought more. It's better to be with you. I'll take Mei and Sister Yin to travel around the world. I can broaden my horizons and cultivate. If I show up, how many people in the world can sleep? Idiot. Only you think so much. If it was Lin Xiao, she wouldn't care about this. Wang Xing shook his head and said dotingly. Perhaps. Lin Ling hugged Wang Sheng's neck and smiled. Looking at Wang Sheng's back, Lin Ling closed her eyes. When she opened them again, a red light flashed in her eyes. Then, she said with the same tone, crossing two worlds, she just wants to be with you. She doesn't care about anything else. End of the book. That you're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.